Welcome to DIYeasycrafts and Berg Today we're going to take a look at the first step in knife making, grinding the profile. Now in this little mini series, we're not going to look at just the complete build of one particular knife. I'm just going to show you how I profile some of my blades. The majority of my knives I actually have cut out at a water jet, Long Island water jet. He does a great job. But when I have a new design or I want to try a different shape, different size, I do still profile blades on my 2x72 grinder. Now I have an OBM, Origin Blade Maker 2x72. It's variable speed, 2 horsepower. I use a very coarse grit belt, either a 24 or a 36 for profiling. You set it up with a flat platen and a 90-degree table. Now I use a push stick, and this just prevents my hand from getting burnt, because this steel does heat up, very quickly, and it also keeps my fingers away from that very coarse grit belt, which can do some damage to your flesh very, very quickly. Now a lot of guys will actually use a bandsaw, to trim off the majority of the steel. This is AEBL stainless, but almost any material grinds similar. On a small project like this, I'm just going to profile, I think, 2 blades. I'm not even going to take the time to cut it out on the bandsaw. I'm just going to use the coarse grit on the belt grinder. Now, by hanging the belt off of one edge of the flat platen, you end up with kind of a rounded over edge, or the ability to do a small curve. Take a closer look at that here. So I can actually plunge in and then just follow the outline which I've drawn or traced onto this steel just with a black magic marker. And I usually use this coarse grit belt and just bring my grind lines into the beginning of that marker line. And then when I go in later to clean up these rough grind lines, with an 80 grit paper, then I'll take it to the bottom of that black magic marker. Now I like to nibble away. If there's a lot of steel to remove, I'll just take a small piece and nibble it down, rather than grinding the entire flat. It just seems to move a little bit faster. You can see here that I've got that belt hanging off the left side of the flat platen. And it's really just time and pressure. The amount of time you spend in a certain spot, the amount of pressure that you apply is going to make the material move that much faster. Now for doing the finger groove, again, I'm going to let that belt hang over the right-hand edge of the flat platen. And by doing that, I'm really able to rough out that entire finger groove. And I do that before I add any additional attachments to the 2x72. And I just get it. It doesn't have to be perfect right now. You want to get it close. You don't want to go beyond any of those black magic marker lines. Now, I'm going to clean up some of those really coarse grit grind lines on the profile, and I'm just going to do this on the flat platen, usually with an 80 grit belt. Again, you don't have to be perfect here. Most of these you're going to go over again after the bevels are ground. But I find it gives me a better feel for the hand, especially the handle of the knife. When I test fit it to see if I have to make it a little thinner or make that finger groove a little bit deeper. You want to make sure it's going to be comfortable in your hand. So the next step, I'm going to change the attachments. So I'm going to take off the flat platen. You see I built a stand next to the grinder. This makes it very convenient to go through the different attachments. This is a small wheel attachment. I'm going to use an 80 grit paper. And it comes with, I think, 5 or 6 different diameter wheels. You definitely want to slow down the RPMs a little bit. You don't want to burn out those bearings. This makes cleaning up that finger groove so much faster than doing it. I used to do it with a little Dremel grinder and a drum sanding wheel. It would just take forever. This literally minutes. Now, if your blade design calls for a collie hole and you don't have a milling machine, like I don't have a milling machine, just a round file and a vise creates that collie hole. A collie hole is going to be the starting point for your bevels. And you can clean up the transition into that filed groove back on the 2x72. I did this with an 80 grit paper. The next step in creating this knife blank is going to be to drill the pinholes. I'm going to use 1/4 inch drill. You can see that I'm not clamping the knife blank to the drill press, but I've got a clamp there that acts as a stop, so that if this drill were to catch, it can't spin. That blade is going to be prevented from spinning. I did a video a while back on how to sharpen a drill bit on a 2x72, and you should definitely take a look at that. I'll put a link in the description. It's a very good thing to know. It allows these drill bits to just last a lot longer, and you can go through the material and drill holes that much faster if your bit is sharp. The final step is another attachment on the 2x72. This is also a product put out by Origin Blade Maker, and it's a surface grinding attachment. I've already bevel or beveled each one of those drill holes. I added some additional holes. Those are just lightening holes. Sometimes the handle itself becomes a little bit too heavy. You drill some additional holes and you lighten that up a little bit. But the surface grinding is going to make sure that both surfaces of the blank are completely flat and uniform. And I do this usually with an 80 grit and 120 grit paper prior to grinding the bevels. Now in the next video, we'll look at grinding the flat bevels, as well as heat treating, sub-zero quenching, tempering, and maybe even some etching on the blade. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, I ask that you please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to this YouTube channel. Comments are always welcome. We'd also like to invite you to our Facebook group, Knives and Knife Making, and I ask that you check out our book. This is Jason Northgard and I put out last year, a book called Introduction to Knife Making, and that's available on Amazon.com. Thank you very much.